Hello, my name is Tong. I've been for mobile app developer for many years. My previous job was doing cross-platform. I recently changed my job to iOS engineer. So in this presentation, I want to talk about memory management in Apple programming languages. So I want to ask, how many of you deal with memory when you're programming? Because nowadays there's yeah wait a minute. So nowadays it's not mandatory to learn memory management to get started programming. So in this topic, in this presentation, I want to show what is reference counting. It's a technique used in Apple programming languages. So it tracks how many times an object is referenced by another object. So if the counter equals 0, so it gets freed from memory. This is a image I got from Apple documentation. Shows how counting works. And so many years ago, you have to manually manage memory, which is called MRR, and you can try play with it if you have an Objective-C project. So, but using MRR, it's not time efficient, so you have to write a lot of code. I can show you some code examples how MRR works. So you have to write a call receive and release method to manage the memory allocation. And let me see. So in ARC, you can strong, weak, and old references were introduced. So why we use that? Because by here's I can have some there's a there's an article which helps me to understand references in ARC. So by default, it's strong references. When you have two classes, one references the other. But when you set the instance of the class to new, it won't get freed from memory because when there's two strong references, it causes return cycle because the compiler don't know when to release it from memory. So that's why weak reference was introduced. And if you have weak here, and when you set instance to new, it get deallocated from memory. Okay, it's time. Okay. Yeah. Reference counting only applies to class instances. If you use struct value types like struct enumeration, you don't have to deal with memory. So.
Management.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't work for only reference types. Only works for reference types.
Mm-hmm. So I think nowadays you have less chance to deal with memory.
Yeah, it's true.
Questions?
Question. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for the speech.
Is this concurrency safe? So if, like, let's say multiple threads are using the same resource through an arc, like, is that safe to do?
Sorry.
If I have a program that has multiple threads that execute sometimes in parallel or concurrently, and they share resource through an arc, is that going to cause maybe problems, or is that behavior okay?
So I think when you don't use the resource, you release.
I think I might be able to answer that one. Usually, like a reference counting implementation uses a atomic counter which bypasses the caches. So basically, whenever you do a copy, it increases the counter by 1 and decreases it by bypassing the caches. So it should be thread safe. That's like the way C++ is doing it with shared pointer.
Oh wow.
Gotcha.
It releases it if the thread signifies to the main atomic.
And basically, they all share like a atomic counter flag somewhere in memory. So like every reference is referencing to the same point. That's how like you do weak references too, which are basically pointing to the counter. And if it doesn't exist anymore, you know, okay, the reference has been like deleted.
So these, sorry, by default it's strong references.
Yep.
So if you reference another class, that'll put up the counter by 1. So if you have if you reference 3 other classes, there'll be like 3 strong references here. Then even if you deallocate, or if you try to set that original class, which is referencing the other classes, to nil, it won't deallocate that memory.
Yeah,
So you're saying?
Like, most CPUs instruction sets have like atomic counters, and they're using those instruction sets.
So I guess.
And if it doesn't exist on the CPU architecture, you're getting like a mutex in front of it.
Okay.
Which is like quite inefficient.
And so the way to solve this, well, I know in Swift, is you simply add weak variable in front of the class within that whatever is referencing it, and then that solves the problem. It seems to be right.
Yeah.
And then even if you set that as nil because it's holding weak references, even if you have a count of 3, it won't matter. It'll still be deallocated from memory.
Yep.
Nice.
I have one sort of a follow-up question. So I think one problem of reference counting type memory management systems is if you create cycles, like structures that contain
like
reference
if you're
cycles.
using more or less like all managed languages have this issue. Basically, you can do like cycles references and it doesn't detect it. That's how you can leak memory in JavaScript too.
I know.
So are there like good known solutions to this problem that are used in practice, or is just the common solution is to try not to create cycles?
That seems to be the way.
Don't do it, or use a better language.
It's a different language.
Yeah. Use Rust. You can't do that.
I imagine this gets pretty iffy with like lambda functions and closures. It must get pretty interesting and messy in that.
like capturing in a lambda function like a share pointer is bad. It's really bad because
Yeah.
like you're keeping the reference, so you're leaking memory.
How do you deal with that in?
Using a weak reference.
Are you so
basically
in
inside
the lambda
lambda-
function you can set it.
Yeah, you can lock.
You reference self.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
reference like a weak pointer to the actual
Okay.
share pointer, and then you lock it. And if it's like you can't lock it, means like it has been destroyed.
Okay.
That's
Great.
the easiest way.
Cool.
Any more questions?
Do you find yourself needing to think about this much when you're writing in Swift?
Yeah, no. In Swift, actually, you can use struct.
Yeah.
If you use struct, you don't have to care about this.
Oh, okay. Instead
Yeah.
of like a class.
Yeah, instead of class.
Okay. And then you don't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah. What's the benefit of using class over struct over like yeah? What happens if you need a class? Is there not really cases where you need a class over a struct
Mm-hmm.
in Swift?
So the benefit of using class, I think there is one. If you want to implement to check if two classes, two instances are identical. I'm not sure about that. So there's some.
So you would use a class for that
Yep.
situation.
So what's the major difference between a struct and a class in Swift?
It's a hard
I mean,
question.
you mentioned one, but just in
Mm.
general.
So, yeah, in ARC, the topic I talked, so it's the difference is that struct and immersions are a value type, but when you use class, you can create instances. So,
Let's see. I'm coming from the JavaScript world, so I don't think there's any similarity in that area
mhm.
between JavaScript. Thank you. Okay, any more questions? Feedback? No? Alright, thank you very much, Tom.
That was interesting.